This is unlikely to be one of my more interesting videos, and that's coming from me. But this week I wanted to talk about the importance of having a writing setup that can give you good posture when you're writing. Regular viewers will have noticed that I always sit in this chair. Actually, for the past couple of weeks, it's been a different chair because the room has been rearranged slightly. But I finally got it back to the way I like it. So I do it in this nice chair here. And I have to say, I think this chair gives me very good posture, which means that I'm comfortable, but not in a way that's going to make my neck or shoulders hurt. And that means that I can concentrate and think about these videos, and I can just relax and sort of get into it and not have to be thinking about my positioning all the time. A while ago, I made a video about my writing slash gaming setup, and I showed the viewer around my home office, which had my gaming PC, and then against another wall it also had my Chromebook, which was just on a writing desk. And the problem is, even though that was the setup I was using for so long, because my rationale was I don't really want to use my gaming PC if I'm just writing. That's a waste of like power and stuff. And I like having my Chromebook. I can just open it, get straight into my manuscript. It comes up straight away. The problem was though that because I wasn't using my PC desk, I had my Chromebook on it was a sort of, I'm not sure what you would call it. It was more like a homework desk. It had a pull-out drawer that was very squeaky, um, and the issue was that I've had that desk for so long because I first started using it when I was a child, and that means that it is on the smaller side. And so when I use it, I had to take my PC chair that I use and I had to lower it down as low as it could go. Now, I did have my Chromebook on a riser so that way it was high up at least, but I had to have my chair low in order to be able to have the keyboard sort of on the same level as me. And then I have the Chromebook on my riser so it was generally on my eye level, and that worked for long enough. But the problem is I have had to stop doing that because recently it's been giving me just such bad posture that it's begun to interfere with my writing process, right? Because what would happen was I have my chair so low down that my feet will be able to touch the wall because there'd be so little clearance between the seat and the floor. And so that also meant that I was sort of effectively slouching the whole time. And eventually that made my back and my shoulders really hurt. But it was really the best writing setup that I had because the dining room table is always full. And I also don't want to be writing in a room where there's other people either. And as much as I like this room, I wouldn't really write in here. There's only like one table and it's quite low and it's more of a coffee table than anything. It's not really a good desk. And as much as I can write with my Chromebook on my knee, it's not a good idea to do that for too long. I may experiment with it at some point, but I think generally speaking, because also there's another room through here, and the reason that I like have my home office in my bedroom is because that way my bedroom is above this room. This room is a sort of studio. There's a second TV in here. There's just bookshelves and cabinets and things. It's all very nice and calm. So my home office being above my studio means that I'm rarely above a room where there are people talking. I used to write in the spare bedroom, but that's above the living room, which is behind this wall, which means when I was writing, most of the time I could hear people under the floor having conversations, and I didn't want to tell them to shut the hell up all day because I was writing. I thought it would just be better for all of us if I moved from the spare bedroom across to my bedroom, which is above this room, so that way I don't have any noise beneath me most of the time. And because I was writing in my bedroom, the only option I had was either my gaming PC or just set up my Chromebook on like an old desk that I had from when I was a kid. But that didn't work because you're not supposed to use a kid's desk, and that was kind of obvious. But it's I'm the sort of person who, and this is not literally true, although it may as well be literally true. I'm the sort of person who only learns not to touch a hot metal surface after I've touched it enough times. Eventually I'll get the message. And now I've got the message. And it kind of irritated me at first because it meant that, okay, I have two options here. I can either just carry on writing like this, which is impossible because having constant shoulder and back pain just means I cannot focus on my writing. So there's no point in me continuing with that. Or I could try and change my setup somehow. So I tried putting my laptop riser on a plastic box and then having my chair higher up, but then the keyboard and mouse I was using were much lower down, and it was just not practical to use because there was the arms of my computer chair that would always sort of get in the way. It was just always irritating to me. And eventually I just began to become just so fed up. And I was thinking, it cannot possibly be this physically impractical just to sit on my ass and write. Surely not. So eventually I decided, you know what? I've got my PC. Why don't I just use that? My Chromebook is really convenient. Sure, I can open it up, boots up practically straight away. I have my manuscript right in front of me, sure. And it uses practically no power whatsoever. But I'm extremely uncomfortable. And do I really want to buy an entirely new desk and chair? Do I really want to do that? Because I'd have to look at different ones. I'd have to like do a bunch of measurements, look online, go to shops, and it's going to cost money. And it's just all, it's just the sort of thing that just I can't be bothered to do. I could do it, I suppose, but I just can't be bothered. It just seems like work. And that is the one thing that I am constantly trying to avoid in life, is doing any kind of work whatsoever. That's why I like writing. One of the reasons people ask me sometimes how I can write so much and why I like writing so much and how I'm able to just make myself sit down and write. And the reason for that is it requires me just to sit down and type, which is something I'm good at. I'm motivated by anything that doesn't require me to do anything that physically intensive. You know, like, well, maybe the reason you're not as productive a writer as you'd like to be, I'll think to them. I'll think when they ask me about it, but I won't say it to them, but I'll think it. I think to myself, maybe you'd be a more productive writer than you'd like to be. Maybe you'd be a more productive writer than you are. Maybe like you would be more productive than you are if you were lazier. And I know that sounds weird, but for a writer, the lazier you are, the more productive you'll be, because there are just so few things that you'll want to do that aren't writing. You know, I've kind of gone off topic here, but that's basically why I just couldn't be bothered to just look for another like desk and chair and stuff. So I decided in the end, I'll just go to my PC. I'll like create, because like with a PC, actually with pretty much any like computer, there are power settings and there are different levels and things, and so I've got like max power mode, which is like 100%, like 100%, like pull out all the stops, just just fire on all cylinders. You know, that's when I'm playing a game. But I also have like this power saver setting, which is where what the power settings, what you can do with them is you can sort of set CPU usage so that for max power, that's like 100% CPU if required. For power saver, I've set it to maximum 10%, minimum 1%, so that I'm never using more than 10% of the CPU. And I'm thinking that should make it like much easier in terms of power consumption. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's what I'm doing. It's like somebody recently, they were talking about how long their videos taking to render, or how long their video had taken to render, and one of the things I did differently, I rendered it again, and apart from the fact that I rendered it in a much better format than they had chosen, I also went into their laptop's power settings and I turned it on to maximum power, which meant it practically like doubled. No, wait, no, I didn't render it again. It was already in the process of rendering, and I changed the power setting. I upgraded it to max, and they noticed that it had sort of suddenly sped up how quickly it was now rendering the video. So anyway, most of this is just padding, because I like to make long videos so that I don't get people who like short videos commenting, because I like my videos to appeal to people who have like attention spans and things. So I'm a sort of, I make videos sort of for the anti-TikTok crowd, if you will. I've spoken about a lot of things. I've spoken about power settings on computers, and I've spoken about how lazy I am, and stuff. And all of this was basically just to talk about the fact that I finally figured out just how to get a better writing setup that gives me better posture and thus makes it easier for me to write. But I think it's worth saying posture is important in general, but it's especially important to consider in your writing setup, because it will help with the process. Because if you're uncomfortable, you can't concentrate. And now I don't. Before I was thinking that like, how easy is this really going to be for me to like just keep writing if it's always so physically impractical? Now though, I'm thinking, yeah, this is all right. I'll still use my Chromebook in the odd place from here and there, but yeah, I think I'll stick to my PC now. This chair is really very nice. I also sit here more often. I might try reading magazines. I find reading difficult because I struggle to find a good like position to sit in. I'm thinking maybe like my sofa isn't a good place. Maybe that's because of like it's got a very soft back and it also reclines as well. That's not necessarily a good setup. Maybe something like firmer but still comfortable like this might be a better place for reading a magazine. I don't know. I like reading old back issues of PC Gamer. Anyway, So hopefully next week I'll have something much more interesting to talk about. I was going to make a video about fictional media, but this was more relevant. So you can tell why I haven't posted for 2 weeks. Anyway,